Hello and welcome and namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up over the next 1 hour. India's growth rate for the July quarter surges to an 8.2%, the highest in 6 quarters. Prime Minister Modi says data reflects impact of pro-growth policies and reforms. India announces the state visit of Russian President Vladimir Putin to Delhi on the 4th and 5th of December for the 23rd annual summit with Prime Minister Modi. US President Donald Trump says his administration will permanently pause migration from third world countries. Authorities in Hong Kong say apartment blaze largely extinguished after burning for over 40 hours. The death toll rises to 128. And the 56th International Film Festival of India, or IFFI, comes to a close in Panjim, Goa. Skin of Youth bags the coveted Golden Peacock for Best Feature Film. But India's growth outlook continues to strengthen, with major global and domestic institutions upgrading their projections. India's economic growth accelerated to 8.2% year-on-year in the July to September quarter, boosted by strong consumer spending and a front-loading of production. It's the fastest growth rate in 6 quarters and it outstripped all estimates. Take a look at this report, where Prime Minister Modi has also welcomed India's robust GDP growth in Q2 25-26.
India's economy is progressing on a stable and resilient growth path, supported by structural reforms, digital transformation, and a strong focus on inclusive development. India has delivered another strong economic signal, reporting Q2 GDP growth of 8.2%, far above market expectations of 7.4%. Some of the key highlights are: real GDP has been estimated to grow by 8.2% in second quarter of financial year 2025-26 against the growth rate of 5.6% during second quarter of financial year 2024-25. Nominal GDP has witnessed a growth rate of 8.7% in Q2 of financial year 2025-26. The secondary and tertiary sector have boosted the real GDP growth rate in Q2 of financial year 2025-26 to rise above 8%. Manufacturing and construction in the secondary sector have registered above 7% growth rate at constant prices in this quarter. Financial, real estate and professional services in the tertiary sector have sustained a substantial growth rate at constant prices in second quarter of financial year 2025-26. Real private final consumption expenditure has reported 7.9% growth rate during second quarter of financial year 2025-26 as compared to the 6.4% growth rate in the corresponding period of previous financial year.
India remains the world's fastest growing major economy in Q2 FY26, delivering an impressive 8.2% growth in September quarter versus an expectation of 7.2%. And what's interesting is that this growth is without the full impact of GST rationalization kicking in, which took effect on 22nd of September. We feel that the effects of monetary as well as fiscal easing done by the RBI and the government are kicking in now.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi said GDP growth reflects the impact of government's pro-growth policies and reforms. Prime Minister wrote on social media platform X, and I quote, "The 8.2% GDP growth in second quarter of 2025-26 is very encouraging. It reflects the impact of our pro-growth policies and reforms. It also reflects the hard work and enterprise of our people. Our government will continue to advance reforms and strengthen ease of living for every citizen." Unquote. Industry leaders have hailed India's GDP growth.
This remarkable growth is powered by strong domestic consumption, rising infrastructure spending, and a strong digital adoption across the country. A fast-growing economy like India needs seamless energy transformation. Expanding CNG networks would ensure that drivers, fleet operators, and businesses can sustain and improve every day. Most importantly, this growth is creating millions of jobs and giving wings to entrepreneurs across Tier 1, Tier 2, and now even Tier 3 cities.
India's growth outlook continues to strengthen with major global and domestic institutions upgrading their projections in recognition of the economy's resilience and expanding domestic demand.
The biggest driver this quarter has been manufacturing. Output has picked up, and this is visible in the IIP, which grew faster in the September quarter than it did a year ago. Consumer demand has also held firm, helping to sustain this momentum. As the impact of GST changes starts to show up with nearly 2 lakh crore flowing into the hands of households, it will add meaningful momentum to growth.
The RBI has revised its financial year 2025-26 GDP forecast upward from 6.5% to 6.8%, reflecting robust momentum across sectors. International agencies echo this optimism too. The World Bank projects 6.5% growth in 2026, citing strong consumption and the positive effects of GST reforms. Moody's expects India to remain a growing G20 economy through 2026 with growth rate of 6.4% and 6.5% in 2027. The IMF has boosted its projections to 6.6% for 2025 and 6.2% for 2026. The OECD has raised growth forecasts to 6.7% for 2025 and 6.2% for 2026. The SP anticipate that India's GDP will grow by 6.5% in fiscal year 2026 and 6.7% in 2027. With international organizations' confidence in growth trajectory of India and stable macroeconomic indicators, the economy is well positioned to sustain its economic momentum. Bureau Report, DD India.
Okay, let's talk about this, unexpectedly high rate of growth for the second quarter for the Indian economy. We're joined by my colleague Ajay Mishra and senior economic journalist Vladimir Bhattacharjee as well is with us. First to you, Ajay. Now, to what does the government ascribe this? Prime Minister Modi said pro-growth policies and much of the steps that his government has been taking, reforms, etc. But if you break it down in terms of what has emerged in the document itself, what do you see?
Absolutely. I think the major growth drivers of second quarter growth numbers has been the manufacturing and services, and this was reflected in the PMI, the Purchasing Managers Index, both for manufacturing services in last 6 to 7 months or so. So there has been a good demand both from the manufacturing and services, and within services, the financial sector services have grown by more than 10%, whereas the IT services have also done well. Going forward, it is also expected that the reforms like GST rationalization will also have an impact in the coming quarter. The policy documents as well as the Chief Economic Advisor in the Ministry of Finance have said that the repo rate revision, which has shown the decline of 50 basis points in the last couple of policy announcements, have a positive bearing on the overall GDP numbers. But the growth numbers, along with the stability in the inflation, have made this story brighter for India, because if you see the Eurozone, Germany and France are growing at sub 1% level. Japan is going at just 1.1%. If you look at the US numbers, it is at 3.8%. So India remains the fastest growing economy, large economies, and it is growing despite the fear of stagflation as raised by the IMF. So India is really standing out and emerging as a bright star when it comes to growth numbers, along with the price stability.
Yes, and may that remain. But Shubhamoy, could you look into the fact that there were projections that there will be 7.2%, 7.3%, but 8.2%, that's a significant jump from what was estimated. So, what's the story there? Are you able to hear me, Shubhamoy?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. The reason I held on was that I suspected it was Ajay. Basically, what has happened is that the projections by lots of agencies at around 7% sort of tended to overestimate the impact of the Trump tariffs, that it will not be pushing further. Now, there will be the impact of Trump tariffs at some stage, but it's not now. We are talking about the period July to September. All data shows that incremental credit growth, the IIP, Index of Industrial Production, as Ajay was pointing out, any other things that you look at in terms of also agricultural production. Remember, we have had the largest ever production of food crops in India. All of these obviously show a huge ramp up in the productive capacity of the economy. And nothing exemplifies it more than one particular statistic, which I've been talking to this evening, which is the credit flow to the MSME sector. It has really jumped massively. This is a very strong change which has happened in the Indian economy, which we have not seen earlier. And if you look at this number, it's growing at something like 28%. This is an indication of two things. First of all, that at the lower income groups, investment and earnings capacity have risen very sharply. Patch it with the fact that the private consumption expenditure has been the biggest grower in this data. Both of these together show that in the lower income groups, there has been a huge rise in consumption, investment, and everything. As a result of that, the economy has benefited, which is why when we see that every sector has had a ripple effect from this broad basing of the growth development. And this was something that was not anticipated, which is why you get this big difference between what the agencies estimated of around 7, at best 7 to 7.2%, to something like 8.2% now. It is this differential that has created the growth booster for the Indian economy. And there are, of course, lots of reasons for it, why this has happened. We can go into that later. Yeah, Gautam.
Okay. And Ajay, what are still the areas of concern? And if we were to look beyond this particular quarter, which has been stupendous, there is, of course, that overhang that is supposed to kick in of the high US tariffs. But at the same time, GST 2.0 reforms, the rationalization of the rates, reduction of rates will also be kicking in. What else do you think might work in the favor of keeping the growth rate higher than most of the experts have been estimating?
Gautam, I think the H1 growth figures has been 8% till now, and as Shubhamoy sir was pointing out, that the impact of the US tariff might come after the Christmas, because till Christmas the orders were already in place, and the shipments had already gone up till December. So the net impact of the US tariffs might come in the third quarter or so. But luckily, the third quarter is also seen as a busy season for Indian economy, and typically the economic activities after the monsoon picks up when it comes to the festive season. And we understand that the GST rationalization, the full impact of GST rationalization are going to be reflected in the next quarter's GDP numbers. But as far as the challenges are concerned, there are some challenges on the export front, as you say, that there might be some impact of the US tariff. Secondly, going forward, the uncertainty in the global markets and volatility in the forex markets for example, might have some kind of bearing. But government is confident that the policy measures, as has been decided by the cabinet, that the support to the manufacturing sector and the recent labor laws reforms are going to have a positive impact on the economy and are likely to neutralize the much anticipated impact of the US tariff on Indian economy. So there are global uncertainties as the policymakers anticipate that they are going to be prepared for. But as the outlook which the chief economic advisor has have shared with us, that is that the healthy corporate sector balance sheets also augur well for the sustained private investment in the H2 of FY 2026. So he's banking on the private sector consumption and private sector expenditure and investment from the private sector, as they say that
Okay.
the balance sheets are going to be improved, in a sense, as the stock market analysts are also expecting that the earnings going forward for the next two quarters are going to be better, and that are also being reflected in the stock market's numbers. So this confluence of stable inflation, sustained public capex, and reform momentum across the economy, as reflected in the upward revision of the FY26 GDP growth projection by various agencies, is what the government, especially the Ministry of Finance, is banking on.
And Shubham, what are the markers which will be coming in the next few weeks and months that could determine the course of the Indian economy? I can think of the RBI's monetary policy revision, whether rates will be further reduced, inflation data as well, plus trade deals. Today, the Commerce Minister announced that we're going to be working on a SEPA with Canada. And of course, the big one would be the Indo-US framework deal, and then perhaps a trade deal as well. Also, the India-UK trade deal is still to come to effect.
Yeah, Gautam, but you know what? These are the external markers. What's happening and which is leading to a substantial change is the domestic markers. And I think that is something substantial. I talked about the MSME. Just let me tell you the figure. It was 1,028 billion in February 25, credit to MSME sector. That is 3,742. That is exceeding both credit to industry generally as well as to agriculture and allied sectors. Massive growth. This is a substantial change. Similarly, in services, we are seeing health, education sectors, which are now going much more. The government expenditure, remember today's fiscal deficit data shows government expenditure, revenue expenditure has plateaued. It's flat. But services is showing a massive growth. What does that mean? That means services, not of fiscal, not of health, not of financial sector, but of neither of construction, but of other sectors, which is health and education, is rising very substantially. These are the changes that are making the Indian economy a very interesting place to look at, and I think would be the determinants of what is going to happen next in the next quarter. The biggest change that you will see in the next quarter will be that none of this data includes GST.
Yeah.
The GST impact will be coming in the third quarter, because this is only up till September. So October, November, December third quarter will be the GST quarter, and that is where we shall be seeing some fantastic changes. So that's what I expect to be happening. And of course, as you rightly pointed out, I'll be very surprised if in the December review of the monetary policy, RBI doesn't go in for a rate cut aggressively. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's hope that the Indian economy keeps getting this strong wind beneath its sails and keeps forging ahead. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, both Shubhamay Bhattacharjee as well as you, Ajay Mishra. Now, the US has announced a sweeping permanent pause on migration from what President Donald Trump called third world countries following a deadly attack near the White House. The US Citizenship and Immigration Services has frozen Afghan-related cases and has ordered a full review of green card applications from countries of concern, apparently 19 of them. Even as new data shows, most detained migrants have no criminal convictions. DD India's Newshour Roy has more.
The United States is tightening immigration policy once again, this time with some of its broadest restrictions yet. US President Donald Trump on Thursday announced a permanent pause on migration from all third world countries, following the killing of a National Guard member near the White House. Trump did not specify which countries fall under the category or explain the scope of a permanent pause. He added that the restrictions would also cover cases approved under Biden administration. The move comes after investigators said Wednesday's shooting involved an Afghan national who entered the US in 2021 under a resettlement program.
This heinous atrocity reminds us that we have no greater national security priority than ensuring that we have full control over the people that enter and remain in our country. For the most part, we don't want them. They come in illegally, have a lot of problems. Their countries force them in because their countries are smart. They don't want them. Let's give them to the Americans to take care of.
In alignment with the administration's goal of reducing what it calls illegal and disruptive populations, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph Edlow said he has ordered a thorough review of all green card applications from countries of concern, which, according to a June 2025 order, includes Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. Green Card, officially known as a permanent resident card, grants ability to live and work permanently in the United States, freedom to work without an employer specific visa, eligibility to sponsor certain family members for their own green cards, access to government benefits such as Social Security and Medicare, qualification for in state tuition at U.S. public universities, a clear pathway to apply for U.S. citizenship after meeting residency requirements. Meanwhile, United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement data shows a more nuanced picture. Over two-thirds of the roughly 53,000 people detained as of November 15 had no criminal convictions, raising questions about how broadly the new measures may reach. Critics warn the reaction could sweep in thousands who entered legally. Nishroy Roy's report for DD India.
Russia says it's ready to move towards peace in Ukraine, even as it questions President Volodymyr Zelensky's legitimacy. President Vladimir Putin has signaled openness to future talks, possibly leading to a summit in Budapest, while insisting Kyiv must withdraw from territories claimed by Moscow. Meanwhile, concerns grew in Kyiv after anti-graft police raided the home of Zelensky's top aide, who later resigned, raising fears of political fallout during sensitive peace efforts.
Amid a rapidly shifting diplomatic landscape, Russia is signaling a renewed willingness to discuss peace in Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said on Friday that Russia wants to move towards peace in Ukraine despite its belief that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is not a legitimate leader. Russian President Vladimir Putin has also suggested that future talks between Moscow and Washington could pave the way for a possible summit in Budapest.
It was Donald's proposal, but he immediately said, "We have a good relationship with Hungary. So do you. We both have a good relationship with Victor." So he offered this option, and of course, we happily agreed. And if, in the course of our talks, it comes to using Budapest as a venue, I will be very happy about it too.
Earlier on Thursday, Putin said that he would end his Ukraine offensive if Kyiv withdrew from territories Moscow claims as its own. Otherwise, his army would take it by force. If Ukrainian forces leave the territories they hold, then we will stop combat operations, Putin said during a visit to Kyrgyzstan. If they don't, then we will achieve it by military means. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz stressed on Friday that it is increasingly urgent to use frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine.
We are trying to reach a joint solution within the European Union. Before the last Council meeting, I proposed using such a loan against Russia's assets to finance Ukraine for the next 3 years. I see an increasingly urgent need to do this. Ukraine needs our support. Russian attacks are increasing. Winter is approaching, or rather, we are already in winter, and I therefore hope that we can reach a joint solution within the European Union.
In another development, concerns are rising within Ukraine after anti-graft police searched the home of Zelensky's top aide, Andriy Yermak. Allegations of corruption, already costing two ministers their jobs, have also alarmed US officials at a time when Kyiv is heavily reliant on their trust and support. Nishoy Roy's report for DD India.
And as I mentioned, Zelensky himself has announced that Yermak, his top aide, has resigned following those raids. Now, the death toll from Hong Kong's worst blaze in decades rose to 128 on Friday, with about 200 people still missing. Fire services say the blaze was largely extinguished after burning for more than 40 hours. Officials believe foam panels, scaffolding and protective netting fueled the deadly Hong Kong inferno. More in this report.
The death toll from Hong Kong's worst blaze in decades has risen to 128 on Friday. About 200 people remain missing. Fire services say blaze was largely extinguished by Friday morning after burning for more than 40 hours.
The fire was put out and the rescue operation is over. Our aim now is to make sure the temperature decreases in the building, and once everything is deemed safe, police will collect evidence and conduct further investigations.
Authorities are investigating what sparked the fire, including examining the bamboo scaffolding and netting wrapped around the complex as part of a major renovation. At least 100 Indonesians, domestic helpers or migrant workers were living and working in the area. Some of them were living in the buildings.
I was inside the building with my employer, and we heard the siren so loud, so we just kind of like looked at the window. We looked at the window and we saw the firefighter was running. So it's like I saw something flew and I smell burning. So I was like, talk to my employer, this is fire.
Hong Kong's Independent Commission Against Corruption arrested two directors of Wilpar Architect Company, a consultancy in charge of renovations on the complex of buildings in Hong Kong that caught fire on Wednesday. The estate, housing more than 4,600 people, had been wrapped in bamboo scaffolding and green mesh for renovation work. Hong Kongers showed support for residents who lost their homes in blaze. People donated clothes, blankets, shoes and food items in a donation drive next to the evacuation shelter. The fire had hit the Wong Fuk Court development with 8 32-story towers in the northern district of Tai Po on Wednesday afternoon. Bureau Report, DD India.
India has announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin is set to undertake a state visit to Delhi on the 4th and 5th of December for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit. The visit will present an opportunity for the leaders of the two nations to not only take the extensive India-Russia ties forward in areas like defense and energy, but also take up global and regional issues of mutual interest, such as the Ukraine conflict.
The last annual India-Russia summit took place between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Vladimir Putin in July 2024 in Moscow. Now it's the Russian leader's turn to visit Delhi. According to India's Ministry of External Affairs, the Russian president will pay a state visit to India from 4th to the 5th of December. The visit is at the invitation of Prime Minister Modi. It will mark 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit. President Putin will hold talks with Prime Minister Modi during the visit. President Draupadi Murmu will also receive the Russian leader and host a banquet in his honor. The visit will provide an opportunity for the leadership of India and Russia to review progress in bilateral ties. It will set the vision for strengthening the special and privileged strategic partnership. It will also provide an opportunity to exchange views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. The Kremlin has also issued a statement announcing the visit, saying a number of unspecified intergovernmental and commercial documents would be signed. Ahead of Putin's state visit, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar visited Moscow on the 19th of November and met his counterpart Sergei Lavrov. Minister Jaishankar had indicated that several agreements were close to completion and their finalization would add more substance and texture to the relationship. Delhi and Moscow have been long-standing friends ever since India's independence. The strategic partnership was upgraded in 2010 to a special and privileged strategic partnership during the visit of the Russian leader to India. In 2024, Prime Minister Modi was conferred with Russia's highest state decoration, the Order of St. Andrew the Apostle I, called for his outstanding contribution to India-Russia ties. Prime Minister Modi has spoken of establishing lasting peace in Ukraine ever since the conflict began, and the issue is likely to be discussed during Putin's visit to Delhi as well. Other issues likely to be taken up, including India buying additional defense supplies from Russia, such as the S-400 air defense systems after Operation Sindoor, Russian energy supplies, which led to the US imposing punitive tariffs on Delhi, and boosting bilateral trade, investments, and other exchanges. Bureau Report, DD India.
Let me now bring in Manjeev Singh Puri, former senior diplomat, to talk about this significant visit. Good evening to you, Ambassador Puri. Now, the last time that Vladimir Putin had come to Delhi was back in 2021, and then, of course, the Ukraine conflict breaking out changed things. How do you see this visit now? Does it connote that circumstances indeed seem to be changing?
Welcome, thank you very much. This is an important visit. Let's understand it. It's not only that India and Russia have an old relationship and a valued strategic partnership and a privileged partnership, but Russia is a very major player. Today, the major thing that the world is talking about, the Ukraine conflict, they are involved in. We have huge economic things with the Russians, this entire business of energy supplies and the consequences of President Trump and his actions on all of that and what is happening. And above all, I must point out two other areas which are important, also highlighted in your report, the defense cooperation. You mentioned Operation Sindoor. I think everyone should acknowledge that, the Russian weaponry with us displayed itself very well. You mentioned S-400s. They were particularly noted by everyone as having performed particularly well as far as we were concerned. I don't want to talk about other defense systems. This is one thing. There are all sorts of conversations about advanced fighter jets, the Su-57s and so on. I don't know about all that. But let's also remember the area of nuclear cooperation. India and Russia have not just old cooperation, but there are new possibilities with India looking at nuclear energy from the perspective of clean energy, now opening it up even to private investors. The big projects are going on. So this is really an important visit, a substantive important visit, not just the fact that these summits take place annually. And so one should look forward to, deep discussion. Let me make one last point. There are a number of global issues also that need to be discussed. President Putin could not go to Johannesburg. We know the reasons why. The ICC sanctions are there and so on. Prime Minister Modi was there. There is a need to discuss the entire business of the global architecture, multilateralism, President Trump and what he has to say. So after they met in China during the SCO summit, there have been several other developments, and India and Russia, two major global stakeholders coming together at the highest level, is particularly important for us bilaterally. And let me also say it in terms of the way we both understand the global order and our willingness and our coming together and working for the common good of the global order.
Right. And this juncture is pretty critical as well, especially for Russia and President Putin, because he's in the midst of this process where another round could take place of talks between, well, we have to see which parties might be there, but there's a possibility of all three, that is Ukraine, Russia and US perhaps meeting in Budapest the way things are going. So to be coming to Delhi in the midst of that it just tells us that this relationship is really, really important to him.
No, absolutely, Gautam. Look, even President Putin, who in various ways the West has sort of sought to keep out and ostracize, etc., he also needs to show to the world that, he's part of the global scene and the global action. And India is a major stakeholder. So there is signaling to all that. And in the midst of all this, which you mentioned, the Ukraine deal, you remember, Prime Minister Modi has always used that expression, it's not the time for war, highlighted the importance of diplomacy, etc. Whichever way that works out, that US plan, that's a completely different subject. We need to have a full discussion on that. And what happens in the context of Ukraine, how does the deal pan out, we'll have to see. But India also has a vested interest. It's not only the vested interest that this is not a time of war, we'd like to have normal trade relations, we also have good relations with Ukraine, we'd like to see all that happening. For a country like India, where we are climbing the global ladder, not just in political terms, but in terms of our economy and where we are going, peace is perhaps the most important element. And European peace, certainly extremely important to us. So this is an important thing. President Putin does his signaling. Our presence there also signals to the world how important we are for the global order.
Yes, certainly. What kind of a message do you think Prime Minister Modi would be projecting through the course of this visit? Because it will be watched very closely, not just in Washington, D.C., but perhaps also in Beijing, in Islamabad, and so many other places.
So, one side of it, there was this SCO summit. The Chinese were there, the Russians were there. There's a certain kind of understanding on that particular front. What will be signaled? One signal will be that, look, give diplomacy, play the diplomatic act. We need to try and find a way forward on the Ukraine crisis. That's particularly important. I think you've touched another point, a very important one. This is about Pakistan. And let's be clear that over the last few years, while we've done very well in terms of our relationship, our defense commitments, the Russian commitments to our defense, their equipment and so on, there has been a certain kind of developing relationship between Russia and Pakistan. And this is something that is of importance to us. It has direct national security implications. We need to talk to them about it. Let me tell you, I was part of the outreach delegations on Operation Sindoor, and the first place that the delegation in which I was part of was Russia. We went there, talked to them. And let me be quite honest about it. When the Security Council passed the very first resolution condemning what happened in Pahalgam, I think we should be quite clear. The Russians must have been supportive. Why should I say that? They were supportive. And what did they say to us? They said, we are strongly with you on the question of counterterrorism, that you have a right to defend yourself. You need to be strong. And I dare say they were strong in terms of Operation Sindoor and willingness to share their defense technologies, continue supplies of the armament. So all of that is very important. Let's understand this in this context.
Okay.
And this is therefore a visit which has significance politically, economically, and geostrategically.
Yes, and well, let's see what also happens in the context of how, if the leaders also broach the topic of President Trump and his tariffs because of the oil that India has been buying from Russia, which apparently now in recent weeks has been being reduced. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Ambassador Puri.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you very much. Just a small little point on this Trump thing. While we may be trying to do a bit of a balancing act in terms of petroleum purchases from Russia, the Russians are perhaps trying to do a bigger deal with the United States. So let's see how all of this pans out. This is one of the most interesting times in global geopolitics.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, a lot of uncertainty still persisting. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment. Now, Prime Minister Modi has addressed the grand Lakshakanta Gita Prayana in Karnataka's Udupi, where 100,000 worshippers recited the Bhagavad Gita in unison. The PM said the Gita's wisdom guides both personal life and national policies, including India's security approach. The PM called on citizens to take 9 key resolutions for a better future, from water conservation to heritage preservation.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday addressed the Lakshya Kanta Gita Parayan program at Sri Krishna Mutt in Karnataka's Udupi, where 1 lakh devotees recited shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita together. PM Modi also recited the verses from the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, calling it a powerful display of India's spiritual heritage and collective consciousness. He said that in this age, chanting the Lord's name is the path to liberation.
भगवान श्री कृष्ण के उपदेश, उनकी शिक्षा हर युग में व्यवहारिक है। गीता के शब्द सिर्फ व्यक्ति ही नहीं, राष्ट्र की नीति को भी दिशा देते हैं। भगवत गीता में श्री कृष्ण ने सर्वभूत हिते रताः ये बात कही है। गीता में ही कहा गया है, लोक संग्रहम एवापि संपश्यन कर्तुम अहर्षि। इन दोनों ही श्लोकों का अर्थ यही है कि हम लोक कल्याण के लिए काम करें।
PM Modi highlighted Udupi's deep cultural and historical ties, from its association with Jagadguru Madhvacharya to its early adoption of governance models later seen nationwide. He praised the global impact of initiatives like the Koti Gita Lekhan Yagya and noted the growing engagement of youth with the Gita. Prime Minister linked the teachings of the Gita with national policies, emphasizing welfare for all and empowerment of women. Referring to Operation Sindoor, he said, India is committed to safeguarding its peace with strength. PM Modi urged citizens to adopt 9 resolutions, such as water conservation, tree plantation, supporting and uplifting the poor, adopting Swadeshi and being vocal for local, promoting natural farming, practicing a healthy lifestyle, embracing yoga, preserving ancient manuscripts, and visiting at least 25 heritage sites across India. During his visit, the Prime Minister also inaugurated the Suvarna Tirth Mandap and dedicated the Kannaka Kavach at the sacred Kannaka Nakindi.
And the PM also visited the Sri Samsan Gokarna Partgali Jivottama Mutt in Goa on Friday. He joined the 550th anniversary celebrations of the Mutt, unveiling a 77-foot high bronze statue of Lord Ram and inaugurating the monastery's new Ramayan theme park garden. The PM also released a special postage stamp and a commemorative coin to mark the occasion. Addressing a gathering there, the Prime Minister said the Mutt has stayed true to its values despite changing eras and challenges, guiding people with its commitment to truth and service.
इस मठ की स्थापना जिस भावना से हुई थी, वो भावना आज भी उतनी ही जीवंत दिखाई देती है। ये भावना साधना को सेवा से जोड़ती है, परंपरा को लोक कल्याण से जोड़ती है। ये मठ पीढ़ी दर पीढ़ी समाज को ये समझ देता रहा कि अध्यात्म का मूल उद्देश्य जीवन को स्थिरता, संतुलन और मूल्य प्रदान करना है। मठ की 550 वर्षों की यात्रा उस शक्ति का प्रमाण है जो समाज को कठिन समय में भी संभाल करके रखती है।
Now, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has said that India's economic growth, technological capabilities and principled foreign policy have made it a voice of balance and responsibility in the changing global environment. Countries across the Indo-Pacific and the Global South view this and view India as a reliable partner. Vishal Barista reports.
Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has emphasized that geopolitical uncertainty and challenges such as terrorism, cross-border support to extremist elements, attempts to alter the status quo, maritime pressures, and even information warfare require constant vigilance and clarity of purpose, with reforms becoming a strategic necessity more than a choice. He said reforms strengthen the adaptability of institutions, enhance the agility of the armed forces, and give the nation the confidence to shape its own destiny.
We are strengthening border and maritime infrastructure to support both security and connectivity. And we are modernizing our forces through new platforms, technology, and structures. Through Atmanirbharta, we are building a defense industrial ecosystem that encourages innovation, supports industry, and reduces external dependencies.
Advocating that resilience is as important as capability, Rajnath Singh stated that a resilient India can absorb shocks, adapt quickly, and continue moving forward irrespective of the circumstances. He described the armed forces as the strongest pillar of the nation's resilience, stressing that their capability, readiness, restraint, and firmness is a driving force that allows India to deal with its neighborhood challenges while contributing to regional stability.
India has always believed in peace and dialogue, and we remain committed to that approach. But let me say clearly, when it comes to our sovereignty and the security of our people, we do not compromise.
He also underlined that reforms undertaken by the government are not isolated actions, but are helping to create a nation that strengthens global peace and human well-being.
When India advances on the path of strength, security, and development, the world benefits in several ways. First, a stable India contributes to a stable global economy. Second, India's digital public infrastructure offers a model of inclusive, transparent, and a secure governance for many nations. Third, India's ethical approach to emerging technologies, whether artificial intelligence, cyber or space, sets standards that others look to.
As part of the event, Rajnath Singh launched key digitization and green initiatives, which include ACOM, a strategic initiative to develop indigenous artificial intelligence solutions for armed forces, Prakshepan, a cutting-edge military climatology application for Indian Army, developed in-house by Directorate General of Information Systems, and AI Handbook for military leaders. Rajnath Singh also inaugurated Green Hydrogen Microgrid project set up by National Thermal Power Corporation for the Indian Army at an elevation of 4,500 meters in Chushul, Ladakh. The objective is to replace fossil fuel DG sets from army establishments which are not connected to the grid and reduce carbon emissions of 1,500 tons per annum, among others. Vishal Baristo's report for DD India.
The 25th of November 2025 was marked as a significant cultural and civilizational milestone in the history of India, as on this auspicious day, the main construction work of the Ram Temple was formally completed in Ayodhya, where Prime Minister Modi hoisted the sacred flag, or the saffron flag, atop the temple spire. Now, this religious ceremony turned to become a magnificent symbol of India's enduring spiritual heritage, a testament to centuries of unwavering faith and cultural resilience.
Ayodhya city of northern India once again witnessed a golden chapter of history on 25th November. The saffron flag was ceremoniously hoisted at Sri Ram Janmabhoomi temple with the sound of conch, chanting of mantras and chants of Jai Shri Ram. The entire Ayodhya echoed with devotion and enthusiasm. This is not just a religious ceremony but a glorious celebration of India's soul, faith and belief. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a unique chapter of the country's cultural history has also been added in Ayodhya, which is the Saptamandir complex, a grand symbol of India's spiritual tradition and social harmony. For the first time in the country, the Saptamandir has given place to those great personalities who were not only associated with the story of Lord Ram, but were living messengers of social harmony, equality and unity. This inclusive thinking is the true essence of Ram Rajya, and the same inclusive policy is the guiding mantra of Prime Minister Modi's efforts as well.
हमारे राम भेद से नहीं भाव से जुड़ते हैं। उनके लिए व्यक्ति का कुल नहीं, उसकी भक्ति महत्वपूर्ण है। उन्हें वंश नहीं, मूल्य प्रिय है। उन्हें शक्ति नहीं, सहयोग महान लगता है। आज हम भी उसी भावना से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं।
Maharshi Valmiki, who rose from the marginalized section of society, wrote the world's greatest scripture, Ramayana. He proved that knowledge is attained through devotion, not birth. Maharishi Vashisht, the guide of righteousness, ethics and balance, gave Sri Ram the fundamental principles of ideal governance and justice. Maharishi Vishwamitra renounced luxury and became a sage from a king. He gave the inspiration that with penance and determination, even the impossible becomes possible. Maharishi Agastya, who guided Lord Sri Ram and connected northern and southern cultural streams, was the bridge of harmony and balance. Nishad Raj, a supreme example of friendship and equality beyond social barriers, proved purity of heart to be the highest truth. Mata Shabri, the invaluable message of love and devotion, whose tasted berries were accepted by Sri Ram like a mother's affection. Devi Ahilya, redeemed by the touch of Sri Ram, proved that a second chance's life is always possible.
यहाँ सप्त मंदिर बने हैं। यहाँ माता शबरी का मंदिर बना है, जो जनजातीय समाज के प्रेम भाव और आतिथ्य परंपरा की प्रतिमूर्ति है। यहाँ निषादराज का मंदिर बना है। ये उस मित्रता का साक्षी है जो साधन नहीं, साध्य को, उसकी भावना को पूजती है। यहाँ एक ही स्थान पर माता अहिल्या है, महर्षि वाल्मीकि है, महर्षि वशिष्ठ है, महर्षि विश्वामित्र है, महर्षि अगस्त्य है और संत तुलसीदास है। राम लला के साथ साथ इन सभी ऋषियों के दर्शन भी यहीं पर होते हैं। ये मंदिर हमारी आस्था के साथ साथ मित्रता, कर्तव्य और सामाजिक सद्भाव के मूल्यों को भी शक्ति देते हैं।
The construction of Sri Ram Temple is not merely an effort to restore a cultural identity, but a history of everyone's contribution for a larger cause. The journey of Ram Temple was not only completed with sacrifice, penance and struggle, but also with everyone's participation, efforts and resolve. This temple is a symbol of India's character, where harmony, equality and unity are the soul of Ram Rajya. Ram Temple, the glory of the past, the inspiration of the present, and the guiding light for the future. This temple says, when society works together, the nation achieves greatness. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the creation of a new India is not merely a development campaign, but a resolution for harmonious society, equality, and respect for all. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, the Prasar Bharati has launched a new pilot initiative to bring popular regional language channels onto the DD Free Dish platform through free MPEG4 slots till the 31st of March next year. The scheme targets Schedule 8 regional languages with priority for underrepresented channels in Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Bangla, Assamese and Odia. Regional news channels will receive preference, reinforcing Prasar Bharati's push to expand access, awareness and inclusion across underserved regions. Now, a grand closing ceremony was held at the Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Stadium in Goa to mark the conclusion of the 56th International Film Festival of India, or IFFI. Karan Singh Tyagi won the Best Debut Director Award for Kesari Chapter 2, while Bandish Bandits Season 2 bagged the award for Best Web Series. Vietnamese film Skin of Youth, directed by Ash Mayfair, got the prestigious Golden Peacock Award for Best Feature Film. Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting, L. Murugan, was among the dignitaries present, marking the finale of the 9-day celebration of global cinema.
So every year IFFI is getting new flavors. It's enhancing the festival we are witnessing. I'm also participating this year. This is the 5th festival for me. IFFI is giving a platform to the young cinema producers to take up them to the global level.
Prasar Bharati Chairperson Navneet Sehgal also graced the occasion. Sanjay Jaju, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting Secretary, said this edition was a special moment for the entertainment sector, concluding in line with Prime Minister Modi's vision.
It's indeed been the most memorable film festival. All of you would agree with this, and qualitatively, quantitatively, a festival which had wonderful films being played out, the film bazaar, the base film bazaar bringing in the record investments and buying and selling. At the same time, first time we have the AI hackathon, the creative minds of tomorrow bringing in close to 125 participants. All goes with the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, who during the World Audio Visual and Entertainment Summit said, this is the dawn of orange economy. And truly, International Festival this year has been a step in that direction.
And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Just scan the QR code on the screen to download the app right away. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.